So we're talking about BCA-101, week 12, day 32. Hey, we're going to be done pretty quick. We talked about AAA, hashing encryption. I talked a little bit about the group project, and we talked a little bit about project 4 is due. The group project is going to be our skills-based assessment for this unit. Okay, so we talked about data, and the students talked about data integrity. How do we ensure it? How do we ensure confidentiality? And we started talking about passwords, encryption, a number of things that deal with that. Well, we're going to talk about those. Excuse me. Authentication. Who you are. Yeah, there's a couple different ways, 3 different ways we like to think about this. Something you know, that would be your PIN or your password and so forth, your user ID. Something you have, that would be like a debit card. So then we could have a combination of things here. You could have a debit card and you could know the PIN. Something you are. Probably the most obvious one are a thumbprint or a fingerprint that you use to access your computer. The new Apple, I believe, 10 computers recognizes your face. Something you are. Measuring your iris in your eye. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but that's another area of authentication. Once you get authenticated, the next thing is what can you do on the system? Authorization. What can you do? And we looked at some examples using the Linux box in terms of having authorization by, in that example we talked about the owner, a group you can be in, or individuals. And we looked at our public website and saw what kind of access those 3 things had. And then we also looked at Linux, and we can see auditing and counting. We can keep track of what you did while on the computer. This is going to become more and more interesting as we look at how companies like Google and Facebook and Twitter and so forth, and a lot of companies nowadays, how they keep track of you digitally. What kind of a digital imprint do you leave? Okay, next thing. Talked about 2 basic things in terms of securing data. First one we talked about was encryption. We have some algorithm and that takes your information and encrypts it based on a key. So a simple example would be, when I was little, we used to take the alphabet, and then we said for the letter you wanted to use, you used 3 letters down. So if you wanted to use this letter, you would go 1, 2, 3. So you'd do this letter. So if you want to use an A, you would actually write a D. The key then was 3, using the alphabet from the beginning. And so the algorithm is which letter you're going to pick. Of course, the algorithms nowadays are way more sophisticated than our alphabet algorithm, but that's the way I understand it. And you could change the key, and if somebody didn't know the key, they wouldn't be able to decipher the message. Hashing. Hashing takes a group of text and converts it into a set size of text. Okay, so you hash it into this set size, and you can't undo a hash. Whereas encryption, you encrypt it and you can decrypt it. You can encrypt it and then decrypt it. Both have very useful in securing the data. Lack of a better way to say it. So during class we actually look at examples. This first one up here, in Linux, This is pretty good privacy. The letters are mixed around because it's Linux. I'm not sure why. So GPG space -C and then a file name. That will encrypt the file based on a passphrase. So you have to remember the passphrase, whatever you typed in, and then you would use that to decrypt it. We'll look at that example more on Wednesday. Then we also looked at hashing. You can use an MD5, that's the algorithm, and it'll take this file name and it'll create a hash out of it. So this is what you start it with, and then over here you end up with a hash. And those hashes, based on the algorithm, are set size. Again, this hashing is how, best example right now, we'll have more in a minute, or during the week, is how most passwords are stored. Okay? So you type in what your password's going to be, and then it creates a hash, this set length, and then when you type in the password again later, it gets hashed, and then they compare them. And if they equal, it lets you in. Alright, that's it for today.